welcome to Västra Hamnen Market Focus. Today, we will focus on PMD Solutions, a company, medtech company listed on First North in Stockholm, based in Ireland. And to learn more about this company, I'm joined by the CEO, Myles Murray. Welcome, Murray.
Thank you so much. Amazing to be here.
You will give a brief presentation of PMD Solutions, and then I will ask a few questions. So over to you, Myles.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And let me share my screen so I can start walking everyone through. By way of introduction, Myles Murray, founder and CEO of PMD Solutions. We are a medical device digital technology company operating out of Ireland, incorporated in Sweden and listed on Nasdaq First North. And we are a pre-profit post-commercialization company now making expansion in beyond Ireland into England, Germany, and the US. Our core technology is RespiraSense. This is a wearable device that directly measures the mechanics of breathing to calculate respiratory rate, how often someone breathes per minute. And it is worn by the patient, typically in an acute care setting, continuously, as it is the earliest sign of clinical decline. And the uniqueness about this technology is that it's motion tolerant. So patients who are alert, who are talking, eating, nervous, walking, it can remove that artifact and give you reliable respiratory rate trends so the right care can be triggered for the right patient at the right time. And this then is enabled with IT systems, whether it's an iPad with an application or integrated directly into a hospital's electronic healthcare record. But an overview of PMD today as a business, we are the standard of care across Ireland, and we're emerging standard of care in England as reviewed by NICE guidelines, the authority in best practice for English healthcare. At the year end 2023, we have annual recurring revenue of almost 40 million SEK a year. Our gross margins are approximately 80%, and that's across 25 accounts, which basically illustrates the scalability and the volume of free cash flow that PMD can generate as it begins to expand more and more. In terms of our customers, we return about 300% return on investment with typical break even within 3 months. And that's really important to today's healthcare system. We support hospitals in preventing admissions in over 80% of the time, particularly in respiratory care patients. And while patients are in hospital, we've actually reduced the average length of stay by about 1.5 days, releasing beds and improving patient flow and improving patient outcomes. And this is underpinned by our amazing technology, which is patented across the world. It is FDA cleared, it is CE marked, and we have all the appropriate certifications for selling at enterprise level to healthcare systems, particularly around data security. And in terms of our quarter-on-quarter revenue and growth, we've been doing incredibly well. Again, our gross margins are very strong, but our profitability is a core focus for 2024. We want to ensure our group profitability within this calendar year. And you can see there by the last reported quarter, there was an increase in net losses. That was a result of our listing transaction costs, which occurred in Q4 last year and overspilled into Q1 this year. So we see ourselves trending towards profitability, strong continued growth, and excellent gross margins. And in terms of our financial targets, we're currently about 39% of our goal of 100 million SEK a year annual recurring revenue. Profitability is very confident for this year. We continue to expand in the UK, and we've just announced our first pilot site in Germany, and we are continuing news for Germany and the US. So the reason we exist is very simple. Changes in how fast you breathe are an earliest indicator of decline, much earlier than pulse oximetry from the fingertip, heart rate monitoring, or blood pressure monitoring. And because there is no electronic standard of care for measuring respiratory rate, there's an over-reliance on finger probe technology. And the challenge with that is if I'm not measuring how fast I breathe, if I increase my breathing rate, my finger probe technology says I'm okay because I'm forcing air more in, but it's the act of breathing faster is the early indicator that something is amiss. Today, 80% of recorded respiratory rates are incorrect. 31% of events, negative events that occur to patients are the result of poor physiological monitoring. And from our own research, just under half of those are associated because of inaccurate respiratory rate measurements. And this is what our core business has been looking to revolutionize for getting the right care for the right patient at the right time. In terms of their business model, the hospital is the customer. So it is the respiratory consultants within the hospital who also have opportunities for supporting community or step-down care into community or home services. The vast majority of our patients today are respiratory, over 97%, but we are expanding laterally into emergency departments, post-anesthetic care units, and into other disease pathways such as stroke units or cardiology. For our hospital or our acute hospital sales at the moment, we have 25 key accounts. About 89% of our revenues are from recurring revenues, and about 11% are for capital sales. But 2 years ago, we started to look at step down, or in the US, they call it hospital at home or remote patient monitoring. In Europe, we call it virtual wards. And this is where patients get discharged slightly earlier, still under the care of the hospital, but treated and wound down in the home care setting. And we launched Ireland's first virtual ward last year, and we have demonstrated over 100% of prevented readmissions in severe chronic obstructive pulmonary disease patients, where previously the readmission rate was once every 45 days. And we have shown break even within 2 months within this particular offering. So our technology has opportunities across the continuum of care for patients, across respiratory pathways and other laterally associated pathways. And we still have one key customer, which is the hospital. And when you look at the market opportunity for these, we see a serviceable and conservative market opportunity of about 79 billion SEK annual recurring revenue a year. That is broken down into the hospital, acute hospital sales market, which is about 41 billion a year. And the other half is associated with the hospital at home or virtual ward business model, where the US is estimated to be about 37 billion SEK a year in annual recurring revenue. Britain is one of the Europe's leaders in virtual ward care at currently just under 1 billion SEK a year. And Ireland is emerging next to England as a virtual ward leader in Europe with about 250 million SEK a year in annual recurring revenue potential. This brings me on to our recent development. We had the opportunity to acquire key assets from Coala-Life AB. They included the customers in Sweden for the Coala-Life monitor, but also the US company, which delivers remote patient monitoring using a platform and clinical services for clinics all across the US. And we were very fortunate to start working with the Coala Partners team in the US. That's the subsidiary of the Swedish company. And we see huge opportunity in structuring our company for phenomenal growth this year. And just like our parent company, profitability is a key focus. And we're looking forward to turning that company profitable within the next few quarters, and indeed feeding surplus cash into the group for the group to also be profitable. At the moment, there's about 14 clinics servicing about 1,400 patients per month and about an average 1,000 SEK per patient per month. And one of the other key elements of this synergy is that PMD can now unlock respiratory care for the Coala Partners customer base, where at the moment about 95% are cardiac related. We can now bring pulmonary patients into that service with the expertise that PMDS has to offer our new subsidiary in the US, Coala Partners. So to summarize in terms of PMDS and as an investment opportunity, we have demonstrated strong growth with incredibly strong margins. We are geared towards profitability this year, and we've now proven our ability to scale beyond Ireland and indeed beyond the European Union. We have a strong differentiated product, which is now complemented by a new technology for cardiac and ECG monitoring. And we have a strong pipeline of intellectual property, which we are developing as we speak around AI, machine learning for prognostics and diagnostics in the cardiac and respiratory space. And as a founder of the company, my mission is to drive this to position PMD Solutions as the global leader in making every breath count. Thank you very much. And I open myself up to any questions to yourself.
Thank you very much, Myles. Firstly, why did you, as an Irish company, expanding in Britain, Germany, and the US, chose to be listed in Sweden?
Yes, it's the number one question we get asked all the time. And it's really simple. We see ourselves as an emerging market leader. And just like the early companies of the pulse oximeter, which are now multi-billion SEC organizations, international organizations, we see ourselves as potentially being that type of entity for respiratory rate monitoring in particular, but expanding into cardiology and hospital home services. We are at the point where we're into close to profitability. We've proven our product at scale. We've proven our business model at scale, and we're kind of past the venture capital stage. And we had to evaluate how are we going to fund our continued growth as other acquisition targets emerge, and as our ambition to organically grow in new countries emerge. And the public markets are the best way forward for us. And it was very obvious to us that the NASDAQ brand, with our peers already listed there, is a very strong market for us to list on. We saw huge cultural opportunities in Sweden from capital markets investments, and we saw great liquidity in that market for stocks like ourselves. And there is a fantastic selection of peers for us to compare to, so analysts and investors can really estimate how are we going to evolve in relation to some of those historical and current stocks. So really for us, it's about fueling our ambition to grow and selecting the right exchange that can understand us so we can get access to capital and continue building shareholder value.
I understand. Thank you. So what about competition? Are there any competition out there?
Thankfully, yes, which is a good sign, right? Let me just start by saying manual measurements of respiratory rate is still by far the global standard of care. And companies have been trying to crack this vital sign for quite some time, particularly the multinational companies, trying to measure it indirectly, either through the finger or through the heart rhythm, but usually never directly. And what has clearly been the challenge is false alarms because of motion or talking artifact. And we knew when we started PMD that that was the problem we really needed to solve. If we could measure respiratory rate continuously without false alarms, then that would transform how scarce resources in the healthcare system can find the right patient at the right time and stop that patient going to the ICU and having a longer, more costly and more riskier length of stay. So today, at the moment, I would say that we are generally the market leaders in continuous and reliable respiratory rate monitoring. There are emergents for sure, but there are also technologies now reversing their decision because they're beginning to realize that every technology works when a patient's healthy and still, but when you put it in the real world, you begin to see the inefficiencies of some methods of measuring respiratory rate compared to a direct measurement like what we have. And I think that is going to be not only our differentiator today for respiratory rate, but because we measure directly, the pipelines of opportunities of analyzing the pattern of breathing and being able to do diagnostic and prognostic analysis on that opens up a whole new world for PMD to maintain its competitive advantage into the future.
I see. So returning a bit to the financials, you showed some pictures of images of your growth prospects, and at what sales level will you break even?
So as an Irish kind of operation with UK sales and Germany sales planned for 2025, we would see a target of about 50 million SEK being our break-even point in terms of achieving positive cash flow. Now, with the acquisition of the US company, which has an equivalent burn rate to the PMDS entity, but we see higher potential and faster revenues being generated from the remote patient monitoring model. We would see potentially our break-even happening within this year as opposed by the end of this year. And our goal is for that entity to be profitable, for the group to be profitable. So breaking it down, and I don't really want to get into forecasts right now, but breaking it down, if Ireland had 50 million SEK annual recurring revenue, that entity without the acquisition would break even. And we would see that the US entity in itself absolutely has the potential now to break even within the next several months.
Okay. Could you also elaborate a bit on the sales cycles in Britain, for instance? What could we expect, and how does the UK differ from Ireland, for instance?
Yeah, very much so. The healthcare systems are largely the same, but the governance and the procurement methods and the IT, there is a difference. And within the English context, we see there being many stakeholders that we need to convince to use our technology. So it's not just a respiratory doctor or the lead nurse, it's the IT stakeholder, the strategic stakeholder, the procurement stakeholder, and the governance stakeholder too. And what we've become very good at is making sure that our proposition resonates across that organization and that we understand their motivations and KPIs and how our technology and service can address those, improve those, and return cash flow or release capacity for the NHS in particular. So at the moment, those sales cycles can last anywhere between 3 to 6 months. And I'm really looking forward to the near future for announcing progress that we're making in the UK market. Okay.
So let's turn a bit to the Coala-Life acquisition. What was the reason behind this?
Well, first and foremost, it was opportunistic. Okay, so they did go into bankruptcy, and I previously had known their management team before that, and I had the opportunity to meet them months ago. And I saw the synergy in terms of complementary technologies, expanding to other pathways, with the obvious strength of Coala-Life having a US entity who has learned how to sell and how to scale, but maybe just needed some operational enhancements to make sure it's profitable. And we must also remember that the markets has transitioned from growth focus to profitability focus over the last 2 years. So there's a lot of macro reasons as well why that opportunity has now come to itself. But for us, hospital at home is a key growth area for us. We're proving it in Ireland. We're doing it in England. We see remote patient monitoring in the US being a no-brainer. And the US anyway for us was one of the key growth markets that we wanted to target and develop over the next 12 and 24 months, along with Germany. So this acquisition...
So will the acquisition, speed up the process in the US?
Oh, hugely. Yeah. Hugely. So right now, we already have paying customers for cardiac monitoring, and we have indicated interest from our existing customers for including respiratory patients. So this presents a huge opportunity for us now. Instead of spending the next 12 months learning how to sell in the US, we'll spend the next 12 months selling in the US. So a huge opportunity for us as a company, and an amazingly shortened learning curve.
And how does it work with your offering? Will you replace Coala-Life's product, or will you complement it, or how does that work?
Oh, complement it. The team there are fantastic. They're very knowledgeable and very passionate about the remote patient monitoring services that they provide and the tools that they have to do so. We would see ourselves adding RespiraSense into their product offering mix, which will be a cost because, again, they don't sell the device. It's all about remote patient monitoring, flat fee from insurers in the States. But it will open up a new patient population that they can pursue. So we can see an increased volume of patients per month, which drives the revenue for the US operation. In terms of Europe, we may see the use of their software come over to us in Europe, but we're very cognitive of the fact that for the next 12 months, we want our European operation to stay focused on RespiraSense, and for the US operation with Quorum Partners to stay focused on that. And if we achieve profitability across the different business units, we have amazing opportunity to merge, to cross-collaborate, and to go even further.
So there's no risk. I mean, the Coala-Life product, there's no risk that it's going away because of the Swedish bankruptcy.
No, we were fortunate enough as well to acquire the key assets of the technology, the stock, the intellectual property of the Coala-Life heart monitor and the Coala-Life platform, the software that the healthcare records are stored on. So we have those assets. Now we've procured those assets and we're incorporating them within our own quality and regulatory operations while we absorb and implement our lean strategies into the US operation.
I see. And how will the acquisition be financed?
So we used revenue to finance this acquisition. So the acquisition cost was for 3.6 million SEK, 50% upfront, 50% upon completion of transfer of assets. And we were fortunate enough to be able to use our revenue to support that acquisition. So right now, our core goal is to restructure the organization in Quorum Partners in the US and start generating positive cash flow as soon as possible.
See. So my final question is, if you were to pick 3 things for investors to look out for in 2024, what would you pick?
Number 1 is UK news. So the UK for us is a growth market. We know how to sell. We're very mature there, and we have a fantastic pipeline. And again, if you look at the number of accounts we have at the moment for the revenue that we have, it doesn't take a lot of accounts to make a huge impact to our top line. So UK news is number 1. Number 2 is profitability announcements. So again, that's a really important focus for us as a group this year, and us as business units, whether it's RespiraSense in Europe or Quorum Partners in the US, profitability is key. And 3 then is about other partnership announcements that we increase our collaborations, whether it be with other companies or partnerships and affiliations with research institutions that will just show you that our pipeline of channels to market and intellectual property is just going to help us remain diversified from our competitor base for the years to come.
Okay, sounds interesting. Now we know a little bit more about PMD Solutions, and it would certainly be interesting to follow you during your development. Thank you very much, Myles.
Thank you. Pleasure.
And thank you for watching.